So I've got here, it's Timothy Cain. I believe he's talked about... Yeah, he's going to talk about Fallout in this. It's about lore drift. I saw this video come up. And so I'm curious on what he says, because I've seen him talk about a couple of other things to do with video game design and stuff that are very interesting discussion points.
Hi everyone, it's me, Tim. Today let's talk about lore drift. I've seen people complain online, especially recently, about lore changing. Yeah, I'm talking Fallout. But I also am talking...
So this came out 5 days ago. So of course it's a Fallout TV show and stuff.
Talking about this for a lot of IPs. I mean, it's not just Fallout people talk about this. It's Star Trek, Dune. For me, it was the Conan stuff, when Conan went from being a book to a movie. And I want to talk about all this. But let me tell you what I mean by lore drift. I just call lore drift, I don't know where I got the word. I've been using it for years. I just refer to any change in established lore, whether it was intentional or not, from a base to a sequel, whether it's a base game to a sequel or a book to a sequel book.
I think he is, isn't he? Hang on. Let me double check my information. Yeah, he created the original Fallout. And he talks about some stuff on his YouTube channel.
Or when media boundaries are changed, like when like a game is made into a TV show or a book is made into a movie. There's lore that sometimes has to change because it doesn't work in different media that way. And then there's sometimes they messed up and lore got changed. And sometimes I think it's they go, I think I know better than the person who made this lore. I'm going to change it. It's hard to read into that, but you have to accept that it exists. An easy way of describing it, I was going to try to come up with an analogy, and I'm like, okay, lore drift is just like Tokyo drift, but instead of cars, it's lore. I don't think that analogy holds up. So,
I feel like there's a shift between like Fallout 3 in New Vegas and then Fallout 4 and 76 as well.
let's just go back. Let's just pretend it's when
I'm not 100% sure because I haven't played the first Fallout games, but that is something that I intend to do at one point.
established lore changes is lore drift. So, I've already done videos about me talking about how hard it is to make and maintain an IP, my own personal dislike of sequels and why, or even in open-ended games like Fallout with multiple endings. You have to pick a canonical ending if you're ever going to do a sequel or even a a transfer to a different media.
Something that I've found works really well is if they do like a sequel to a game or something that is far enough apart from the original game that they don't necessarily pick a canonical ending. But then at the same time, that does end up with the feeling of, well, do my choices matter because it all ends up in the same place anyway. Or like I think a good thing that Fallout could do, but they haven't, is set them in completely different locations each time, and so you keep the lore, the basic groundwork, but then you don't have to reference what's happened over in another area where another game takes place. Yeah. So you could reference stuff that's always going to happen in the first Fallout, say, and have a Fallout over in the UK or whatever, because Fallout London has been screwed over by the Fallout 4 update. Yay!
So you might want to watch my videos on those. I'll link them below. But now let me give you some examples of lore drift I've seen in other media, and then I want to talk about Fallout. And yes, I'm probably going to get a little salty. So let's talk about
here we go. The creator of Fallout's going to get a little bit salty.
Conan. That meant a lot to me. My first D&D campaign in high school was based on Robert E. Howard's Conan. Now, the book Conan was portrayed very differently than movie Conan. Book Conan was super smart. He was uneducated, but he was super smart. He was from the northern kingdom of Samaria. They never saw foreigners. The first time he saw a foreigner was when he was 14 years old, and they sacked a fort that some southern kingdom, I think it was Aquilonia, it might have been Numidia, they tried to make a fort in Samaria. They just wrecked them because Sumerians were supposedly awesome fighters, some of the best fighters ever. Conan in particular was this. He saw all these foreigners there dead, and he's like, I want to learn more about this, and he went out into the world on his own by his own decision. It turned out he was super good at languages. There is a scene from the one Conan novel, Hour of the Dragon, where he sneaks in to a Stygian temple because his tan skin looked a little like their skin, but
So, out of interest, Cam, who's part of the Star Wars RPG games, he is also running a Conan game, and he's into Conan and the pops and all that. And I looked at Stygian, and thinking of the language things from earlier, I pronounce it Stygian. But yeah, Conan, and that's a quite interesting world. I would probably like to get into some of it, but as I've been hearing from Cam, if you start to go into the pulps, you just keep getting more and more and more piled on top of, like, if you want to read all of it, there's so much that's interconnected. I'm like, okay, maybe I'll read 1 or 2 novels at one point and see what it's like.
he could speak Stygian so well, he sounded like a native. So he just put a hood over and he snuck into one of their temples. A big point that Howard made over and over and over again in a lot of the short stories in the book was Conan did not understand slavery. At its root, he did not understand it. The first time he met a slave, he was confused. He was like, why do you let that guy treat you that way? And it's like, he's my master. And he's like, what are you talking about? And the guy tries to explain slavery, and Conan's like, I don't understand. If someone tries to enslave you, why don't you just kill them? He's like, well, they're guards. They'll kill me.
Based. If someone's going to enslave you, why don't you just kill them? Based.
Conan was like, wouldn't you rather die free than live in chains? He literally doesn't understand the mindset. Now, let's contrast this to movie Conan. I'm talking about the first one. His village gets sacked, which shouldn't have happened. This is people trying to kill Sumerians on their home turf. Conan was made a slave and was grown up a slave. I think he walked around in a circle. It might have been grinding grain, but I couldn't see anything happening. Then Conan was making go around.
I remember this from when I was watching the movie. I haven't read the stuff, but we did watch the first movie.
I know Arnold Schwarzenegger was a great Conan, but I don't think that sounded like Conan. I can't imagine him sneaking in to that Stygian temple by walking up to a guard and going, "Hi, it's me, Priest Man. Let's go to the pyramid now." That's not going to work. So I just had to suspend that, and in my mind, there's now book Conan and movie Conan.
Yeah, there's a clear separation between different versions of the character, for sure. And that happens in a lot of franchises and IPs.
The same thing happened in Star Trek. I'm a huge Star Trek fan, but if you're a member of that fandom, there's no end of discussions about how the limit of warp has changed, how subspace works, how transporters work. I mean, the original series, they stated in that horrific 3rd season episode that women can't be captains. It was dumb then. I mean, back then, I'm sure I was only 3 or 4 years old, but I'm sure people were reeling going, how can a show that's so progressive say that? They just ignored it. TNG came out, they're like, ignored it. There were female captains, there were female admirals. They just like, that's dumb. We're just going to pretend like that never happened. So I get it. Even just translating from one series to another, they just changed lore. And
that, the face I pause on, that's a thing where it's not a bad change, it's not terrible, but I feel like the really good storytellers will come up with a lore reason for why, in Star Trek's case, I don't know it myself, But in Star Trek's case, they could go, okay, come up with a law reason why the females could be captains now. Something changed between the series or something. So you still keep that. But that's with me thinking of keeping it all in one continuity. And I know that Star Trek doesn't have all of the same continuity, like between its books and its TV show and that.
Good. Now let's talk about Dune. Let's talk about something more recent.
Okay, Dune.
I love Dune the book. I love Dune the 1983 movie, and I like the modern movies. But let's talk about the book versus the modern movies. In the book, Lady Jessica was seen as incredibly regal. People thought she was beautiful, and they coveted her, and they couldn't understand why the Duke Atreides didn't marry her.
It's Dune, a D-U-N-E, but because of American, they like to call it Dune for whatever reason. Like, we're going to Bonnie Doon. It's just D-O-O-N.
And it was all political. But she was supposed to have bronze hair. She was gorgeous. Then when chapters later, when they talked about Harkonnen, every Harkonnen was described as having red hair. The Baron Harkonnen, Feyd-Rautha, the Beast Raban, they all had red hair. Why was this important? Because later on you find out that Lady Jessica is the daughter of Baron Harkonnen.
Yeah.
That's super important.
The red hair.
Side note, in the book and the 83 movie, the Reverend Mother Helena Boyum, I don't know, Helena Bonham Carter, Reverend Mother Helena was scary. Though Bene Gesserit were described as witches. They were scary, and she looked scary. She seemed scary in the book, and she looked scary in the 83 movie. Let's jump to the modern movie. The Reverend Mother looked like someone's grandmother at a funeral. And I'm serious. I don't know what... If they were trying to make me scared, they didn't. She looked like a wealthy dowager. She looked like she...
That is so true. I remember reading the book and going, oh, wow, there's some things just hit so much differently. And that was definitely part of it.
She was about to offer me some diabetic candy from her purse.
Yeah, I watched it in the movies.
Jessica was a brunette, and all the Harkonnens are bald. Now,
so I watched the first Dune, and then I read the Great Dune trilogy, which is the first 3 books I got in an omnibus. And then I watched Dune Part 2 in the cinema. I really like the cinematography of it. I think the one of my main drawbacks isn't even about the lore and stuff. It's about how boring the color palette is. And that's to do with the setting. It's like it's all browns or black and white. It's a really cool black and white scene in Part 2. But yeah. Hey, dude with a book. How are you going? I'm looking at this video on Law Drift by Timothy Cain.
This was a perfect opportunity for them to give that visual cue that Jessica was related to the Baron. Nope, all gone. I could go into a whole bunch of other stuff, but the movie diverges from not just the 83 movie, but from the book in wild, wild ways. A lot of people don't care. I get it. These are things to me that, though, my critiques, I've just critiqued 3 different IPs, Conan, Star Trek, and Dune. My critiques, though, are, I consider to be constructive because they're actionable. I've described them in a way that you could change what you did, and I think it would have made it better.
It's a certain level of attention to detail that can be changed that would enhance it even more.
Notice I never did a personal attack. Notice I never said, God, that showrunner, that director, they were idiots. No. And it's certainly not the actor's fault. And I think the actors in all those movies were good. And to be...
I mean, Timothy Zahn said some odd stuff since writing for New Canon, but anyway.
But I didn't have to do a personal attack. And so when I see people online do that, if it's a comment, I stop reading. If it's someone's video, I just click it off. Because guess what? Once they do that, it's obviously they're very immature. So to me, their arguments now don't mean anything.
It's also a thing of like, I feel like they don't feel strongly enough about their argument for it to stand on its own, so they have to turn to personal insults.
It's just somebody
or just randomly hating on certain parts of it.
Whining online. I think they need a nap. So I'll give you an example. I was in a supermarket.
I'm not quite as extreme as him because I feel like you can attribute some issues with certain things to certain people and say, oh, look, that they clearly didn't make sure that this happened, like TCW with Dave Filoni. Dave clearly didn't make sure that all of the episodes went through the continuity editor, for instance. But that's also something that is actionable, that if you're going to do it again, you could improve upon it.
A few years ago. It's after my beard started turning white. And a toddler looked at me and went, Santa. I didn't get mad at the toddler. I didn't go, how dare you? I thought it was cute. I didn't think anything of it. But I certainly wouldn't get movie or game advice from that toddler. It's the same thing online. When people start making attacks like that, I'm like, oh, there's someone whose opinion doesn't matter. So let's talk.
Yeah, that's a big issue with people, especially on the internet, right? You've got some anonymity and all that. You end up, like, not even a billion years ago, you get someone not liking a character that an actor played in a movie, and they go, well, I'm going to attack the person, instead of going, no, I just don't like the character. It's crazy. And certain things in the past, like if you're saying some billion years ago, the person's dead anyway, so what does it matter? But if it's in their personal history and it's like one-off thing that they're like, well, I was an idiot, well, who cares?
About Fallout. And I'm talking about someone who made the first one and part of the second.
Yeah.
Let's talk about just ghouls. Let's narrow this down.
Here we go. He's getting onto his Fallout lore. I haven't heard of her. What's that in relation to? It's probably something that I am not aware of. Or I haven't watched. Something to do with Snow White, maybe? I just searched her name and Snow White came up. It's a lot more to do with the people that are making the movie than the actual actress anyway, because she's just there to play the part. And if they went, okay, the casting choice is good for that, then it's the casting director's fault. Right, if I'm going to watch Snow White, I'll watch the original animated one. Why would I watch a live-action movie? Anyway, ghouls. How they changed them in Fallout is very different, and it is the same area. So we'll see what he says about it.
Ghouls in Fallout 1, there was some lore that was established. They were caused by radiation. How do I know this? The ghouls that were in Vault 12, the vault under Necropolis, were never exposed to FEV. The super mutants didn't even know they were there.
Mm-hmm.
But they turned into ghouls. So therefore, radiation could cause ghouls. Now, we also see regular ghouls, feral ghouls, and glowing ghouls. Great. All that was established. It was also established they need water. How do I know that? If you take the water chip and don't repair their pump, they all die. Mm-hmm. They don't regenerate health magically. They mentioned, by the way, I'm just going to say it inside, they mentioned seeing working trucks that weren't pulled by Brahmin, working trucks. Things we didn't explain. We didn't explain why they were long-lived. We explained why mutants were long-lived. Their quadruple helix DNA repaired damage to it, which not only be radiation damage, but also telomeres, which are at the end of your chromosomes, that seem to shrink, and then when they're gone, you age.
Yeah, telomeres are really cool. The interesting thing about... I was looking up some things about dementia at one point, is that's when the telomeres at the end of your DNA are removed, and then there's a certain amount of useful information at the end of those that gets eaten into, and then whatever those specific cells are, it triggers dementia. And then some people obviously are more prone to that than others because of just how the genetics are set up.
That doesn't happen to super mutants. So they live forever. Why do mutants? Why do ghouls live forever? I don't know. We never explained it. What causes feral ghouls? We don't know. We never explained it. We never even touched upon whether there was a cure. It just nobody knew. And also, I don't know what Harold was. Was Harold a ghoul? Was he a super mutant? Was he some combination? I don't know. We left it open.
I love how it's so. I downloaded the Fallout Bible and read through it, and I still haven't played Fallout 1 and 2, but I hear about Harold, and it's like, I love that there's just some sort of mystery out there for fans to theorize about, and so much. The Fallout Bible was compiled by Chris Avalon, who worked on Fallout 2 as well, and I just love that there's little mysteries there. Yeah, like Yoda, and like other things in different franchises that you can speculate about, and they leave certain parts of the lore free if you want to play, like Chris Avalon especially was mentioning in the Fallout Bible about people playing their own RPG of Fallout. And so I love that they leave it open like that. And it also mentions, hey, maybe there could be a Fallout game set in a different country somewhere.
Now, when you jump to Fallout 2, you get a working car, but you never actually see it driving around because there was engine limitations. Now, by the time we get to Fallout 3 and 4, suddenly ghouls don't need water or food or air. This is a lore change.
I never realized that before because I haven't played the originals.
Now,
please replay. Right.
Was he a super mutant? Was he some combination? I don't know. We left it open. Now, when you jump to Fallout 2, you get a working car, but you never actually see it driving around because there was engine limitations. Now, by the time we get to Fallout 3 and 4, suddenly ghouls don't need water or food or air. This is a lore change.
They needed water and air and food in Fallout 1 and 2. They didn't in Fallout 3 and 4. And I guess that also includes 76 and would... Oh, I guess they needed water in the Fallout TV show, but it didn't seem essential. Yeah, they're immortal, not invincible. They live for ages and they look funny, but they're not invincible.
Now, by the time we get to Fallout 3 and 4, suddenly ghouls don't need water or food or air. This is a lore change. Now, also, as a side effect, you also don't see working cars, but there's suddenly working airships, which we introduced in Fallout 2, so, okay. But
okay.
That's already right there, lore change. So, it's already happening. Fallout is already changing from one game to the next. Why would you be surprised is what happened in the TV show? So, the TV show had the same things. So, now they're saying, hey, maybe there's a feral ghoul. Maybe feral ghouls can be cured, or at least prevented. Maybe some of them regen, maybe not. There's all explanations for that. Maybe some old world drug, they found a side effect that keeps ghouls from going feral. It wasn't made for that. Maybe it's an antihistamine. Maybe it's an asthma drug. Who knows? The regeneration also may not be related to ghouls. It just may be, hey, somebody's found this super regen drug. My point is this. Lore drift happens. It's happened in Fallout from the beginning, so it's happened to the TV show. You can discuss it, you can even dislike it, but you don't have to do personal attacks. And as soon as you do, that's when I tap out. So, my review, that's why my review was, I like it, I don't agree with everything in it. Let's see where this goes, though. I'm curious where this goes. Just like with Conan, it may end up being a book version, like I have a book Conan and a movie Conan. I may end up with a game Fallout and a TV Fallout. That's fine. I'm in for the ride. I want to see where this goes, and I thought it was well done. So, those are my thoughts on lore drift and how it applies to a lot of IPs. Hope you like this.
Yeah, I find it interesting to think about that lore will be changed between multiple different IPs. Like, someone else writes in it, they'll change the lore. For good or bad, for any good reason or bad reason, it's like, okay. For me, I think there's a certain amount I can tolerate, and a certain amount that I can't. we could go an example of, let's go if they continue the Star Wars Expanded Universe, but they use the way the universe worked from the new canon. That clearly will conflict way too much with the Expanded Universe, and it would not work. The kid in the fridge, yeah. And so it's inevitable when other people do stuff. And that's why I found like Star Wars so unique, is that yes, you get some changes over time, especially because of various different authors and then the original creator vetoing it later on or changing some things and new people coming in, but there's you get your two separate versions and they don't mix. And I think that's where too many people try to mix them together, of like, you've got your two separate versions of them and they're the same person.